Coming up on Lifestyle.
My aunt took me to go see that movie, and I was just like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. I was a hustler. I mean, I was like, oh my God, there's a school where you can act and sing and dance and do all that. I'm going there. I come from a lot of strong women in my family. They're like, you know.
I wouldn't get in your way, girl.
Don't. You're a smart man. I tell people, there's nothing you can do to me. So the worst thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Welcome to Lifestyle, the award-winning life coaching show that helps you live your best life possible. Here's your host, Roy Ice.
Have you ever met someone whose strength doesn't just amaze you, but also inspires you? Yes, today's guest is a shining example of that kind of strength. With a career spanning more than 4 decades, she's brought unforgettable characters to life in hit shows like The Division, Being Mary Jane, and Bel-Air. But the journey to get there wasn't easy. In recent years, she's walked through unimaginable grief, discovering that sometimes it's laughter and the decision to keep moving that brings healing. Her journey is one of resilience, heart, and fierce advocacy. Please help me welcome the incredible Lisa Vidal.
Hi, y'all. Hello. Hi.
Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my word.
Thank you.
I had so much fun going through your IMDb and just
I do
seeing,
too. I have fun doing that.
it goes on.
Yeah.
And on and on and on.
It does.
You know, a career in acting has a lot of challenges, and you've had to face several challenges in acting. And I want to just go back and start from the beginning, because you really have to want to be in this business to actually be part of it. How'd you get in? What was your passion to start acting?
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess you can say in my family, I was that kid that was always like, you know, entertaining everybody. I would get up. If my parents started to argue, I was like, look at me, I could sing. And I just was like, I anything to draw away from the tension in my home. And I loved it when I knew I had the power to make people laugh or cry or just in awe, because I really can sing. Yeah. And I just always loved performing. I was glued to the television when I was a kid. You know, we lived in Spanish Harlem, and it was a tough neighborhood. I'm from New York, grew up there, born and raised. And we weren't allowed to go outside and hang out, right? So my aunt would pick us up. It was me and my 2 cousins, and drop us off at the theater on 86th Street. And she'd say, okay, I'm picking you up at 7:30 p.m. So we go from theater to theater watching every movie. Remember back in the day, you could do that, right?
Yeah.
And so I became a huge movie buff, and that was my thing. I was like, this is what I want to do. And honestly, when I was about, I don't remember how old, I was so little, I saw Funny Girl with Barbra Streisand. Yeah. My aunt took me to go see that movie, and I was just like, oh my God, that's what I want to do from that age. Yeah. And that was it.
This is what I'm going to do.
This is what I saw for myself. I mean, I if there was a talent contest at camp, I was in it. If there was any kind of like school thing, the play, whatever, I signed myself up. Yeah. And then when I was picking a high school, one of the schools that we got lucky to come to us in Queens was the High School Performing Arts on 46th Street. And I was like, oh my God, there's a school where you can act and sing and dance and do all that. I'm going there. And I didn't even know what an audition was at that point. And that was it. My mom had a friend who was a model, and she was like, tell Lisa to do this monologue. And then my favorite show was the Carol Burnett Show. And I decided that I was going to play 2 characters from Mama's Family. So I had my comedy and I had my dramatic monologue from the Glass Menagerie, and I got in. And that's how it happened.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
What was your first break? Like, you felt like, okay, now I've got a resume.
I was 14 years old when I did my first television series for PBS, and it was about a family in Spanish Harlem, a Puerto Rican family. I'm Puerto Rican, New Yorican, however you want to address it. And I got the role of the sister, Terry, and it was that role where the producers, recommended me for something else that a friend of theirs was doing. And then I was a hustler. I mean, I was like, I got to find an agent. I made friends with other actors and I found an agent. I got myself signed. And back in that day, there was a magazine called Backstage and Show Business. And I used to go in and see what I could audition for. And I remember I was hired to be a background actor on a series, rather a TV movie. And I'll never forget, they put me on a stoop all the way down the block, and I saw the camera way down the block, and I was like, well, what is the camera doing over there? I'm sitting on a stoop. They're not going to see me. And I was like, and then they called action, and here I was on this stoop, and I was like, well, all the action is over there. And that's when I realized I will never do this again. I am a leading actress.
Yes.
I am not a background actor.
Oh.
So I never went after those roles again. And I was like, you must send me out for these kinds of roles. And that's the thing about, like, when you're an actor, you take risks.
Yeah.
I was young and I was not fearful of using my voice and saying what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be stereotyped early on. And I knew that I wanted to be the lead or the co-lead. And so,
yeah. But it's challenging. I mean, this is such a challenging business to get roles. You, along with Diana Maria Riva, have started an organization, Latinas Acting Up, to address some of the issues within stereotypes and Latinas actually getting the roles that they should and getting the pay for those roles that they should. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it was during the strike, and she came up with the idea of getting a bunch of girls together, our friends, so that we could strike together and join voices together and be strong together. And so I know, because I've been around for 800 years, I know everybody.
Yeah.
So she called me up and she says, hey, can you help me get a few of our friends together and let's do this thing? And I was like, absolutely, I'm there. And I was a national board member of SAG-AFTRA for just about 10 years. And I'm used to using my voice. And so this was an important strike for us, and we really wanted to have a Latina presence there. And our representation is so low, and our voices are usually ignored or not heard. And so suddenly we show up, a group of us, and it just kept growing. We had like people coming from everywhere. Like, can we be with you guys? My girlfriend made T-shirts. We've got it's a whole platform now. And we are joining forces, and basically our dream is to have a platform and an organization where we use our own talent in-house to create. We don't need permission. We're gonna do our own stuff, and we're gonna shoot it, write it, light it, makeup, hair, all of it. And we're gonna get it out there. And it's working. It's working.
I think that's amazing, because I don't think there's anything that you can do that's more noble than standing up for the dignity of other people. And that's definitely what you guys are doing.
Yes.
We got to take a break, but stay right there, because when we come back, we have another great segment right here with Lisa Vidal. We're back with Lisa Vidal, and joining us is our very own Mike Tucker. Now, Lisa, I understand that you've had to navigate some tragedy in your home. Share with us what you've had to go through.
I guess first I want to start by saying that, people think that because you're an actress, you're in the limelight, and, and life seems all exciting. A lot of my life is exciting, was exciting, but we do deal with life, right?
Yeah.
We're human beings. And I'm a mom, married. I'm with my husband for about 40 years now.
Good for you.
Long time.
Good for you.
Thank you. 3 beautiful children. In 2016, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and went through a bilateral mastectomy. And in the same breath, my son was going through terrible drug addiction, my oldest son. And I couldn't even think about my cancer, going through operations, and I was more worried about keeping my son alive, and it was horrific. And I was on a show during the time, so trying to juggle a lot, and I had 2 other children. Unfortunately, the sad story is that my son, my oldest, Scott Jared Cohen, was a phenom soccer player, beautiful young man. And when he was about 16 years old, he was at a tryouts for Olympic development program for soccer, and he was badly injured by another player who was trying out, and he broke several bones in his leg, and the doctors that did the surgery put him on oxy. And at that point, we had no idea what that poison was.
Right.
And I noticed behavioral changes in him. And then I remember moments of actually having struggles with my son for the medication. And I was like, no, I'm controlling the medication. And I realized, because I come from addiction in my family line, unfortunately, that something was not right. And sadly, we sent my son to college, and he was back less than a year later, fully blown addict.
Oh, man.
He went into a depression. He thought he could play football, so he started using steroids, came back a full-blown addict, and that whole thing started an 11-year drug battle with my baby boy.
Wow.
And when I tell you the horror of it, as many parents and family members I can imagine go through, of your child being sick and you just want to save their life. And there wasn't any rock we didn't overturn, any doctor, rehabs. I was going broke, paying for rehab.
Yeah.
My son just got worse and worse. And every time he'd come back from rehab, we were so hopeful that this would be the time. And my other 2 children at the time, you know, just the whole family suffers. The whole family gets sick. And then in 2021, we were in Hawaii, and my son was in his own apartment, and he took his own life. He just couldn't take it anymore. And that is devastating, as you can imagine. I didn't get to say goodbye to him. I didn't get to hug him. And, you know, the pain and anguish and anger that you experience is beyond. And I have been on a healing journey. I believe that my son came with great purpose here, and that I am supposed to use my platform and this pain to help other people and to bring light to what he went through, what we went through as a family. And I've gotten together with a very dear friend, Nancy Davis, whose son also passed from drugs, and she and I are together, and she and her son Jason formed an organization called Cure Addiction Now. We raise money to fund trials, and they're very close to finding a vaccine
Wonderful.
to cure drug addiction and to especially heroin. My son had become a full-on heroin addict, and I'm now asking to tell my story, talk about my son. I talked about my breast cancer. I help people, you know, with the process, but now I'm very passionate about making a difference with drugs and mental health, because I feel like our country ignores these things. It minimizes it. There is no shame in sickness, in addiction. Anybody can become an addict. It can happen to anyone. It doesn't mean they're bad people, doesn't mean they're trashy people. And that is the big lie behind addiction. And I think that America and the world needs to stop being ashamed and treating people who have addictions less than.
Absolutely.
And it's very important that we treat it like any other illness, like I got cancer, I went to the doctor, I got medicine, I got help.
Yes.
So that's part of my
Your vulnerability here is refreshing, and it's rewarding for those of us who are listening to you. A lot of people have had losses. I've had a crushing loss in my life, but losing a child somehow seems worse than losing my spouse, and losing a child with the additional burden of the addiction is again crushing. But what you've shared with us, you're more toward the end of the grieving journey where you're reinvesting. You're finding meaning and giving back. And I want to applaud you for that.
Thank you. I tell people the pain never goes away.
Yeah.
And I will grieve for the rest of my life.
Yes, you will.
But I have to turn the pain into power and make it bring purpose to it. And that's
the finding meaning and
exactly.
finding value in this somehow.
Yeah.
And you're
Thank you,
doing
and I'm
that.
sorry for your loss, because
Thank you.
all loss is horrible.
All of it is.
Very, very powerful. We have to take a break,
Yeah.
but stay right there because our conversation is going to keep getting better. We're back with Lisa Vidal and Mike Tucker. And Lisa, wow, I'm still reeling from the last segment. You shared it with such strength and such poise. But I couldn't help but, as I was listening to you tell the story, you started out and just briefly said, yeah, I was dealing with breast cancer myself. And then your focus was on your son. But I want to back up for a second and just talk to you about what that experience must have been like. It's only been 4 years since your son passed away. And yet you were a mom, a wife, a working actress. You never stopped through your cancer.
Mm-mm.
What was your experience like battling cancer and still having all these responsibilities that you were taking care of?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Listen, hard.
Yeah.
Hard. That's why I tell people there's nothing you could do to me. Some of the worst thing happened to me.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing one of the beautiful things that's come out of it is I've gained incredible compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I've gained incredible compassion for people, for somebody who's hurting or might be hurting and we don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I always say lead with kindness because you don't know what people are going through.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what suffering they have. And I think we need that just as human beings. And what doesn't kill you does make you stronger,
Yeah.
honestly, because I also feel that, we have choices, right? We can choose to allow our grief to crush us, kill us, and destroy us, or we can choose to allow that grief and the terrible things that happen to make us stronger, to push us up, to learn from it in a way that we can extend that love and grace and compassion to somebody else because they'll need it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And my faith helps me with that, and my family and my friends. I mean, I have a village that I'm so grateful for. I mean, I had like, I don't know, 400 people show up during COVID for my son's memorial.
Wow.
Life celebration.
Yeah.
But that's because I pour love into people, and people need love. And when people feel love from you, they want to give it back. And so for me, going through the cancer, the first thing was, okay, how am I going to use this to give back? And now I've walked with several people, through their cancer. I'll have a friend saying, oh, my aunt is diagnosed and she's so scared. I said, give her my number. I'm going to talk to her.
Yeah.
Is it scary? Yes.
Of course it is.
Terrifying. But am I gonna, I got 2 other kids depending on me. I'm a mom, I got a career, I got a family, I've got friends. I'm not going down. Look, that funny, it's Satan, not today. Not today, Satan. I am absolutely that girl that wakes up in the morning, puts her feet on the ground, and Satan's like, uh-oh, what's she doing today? I'm
Yeah.
like, that's right.
That's right.
I'm going to be praying hard. But
I love that.
that is me.
I love that.
That is me. Now, do I have my horrible days? Yes. And you have to allow yourself those horrible days where you feel like crap and you just cry and you're just angry. But you know what? I do. I take it to my prayer room,
Absolutely.
man. And I just have it out with God. You know what? You have to. Then you call a friend or you do something kind for yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like it takes more power for someone to be kind, to be transparent, to be compassionate. It's easy to be a you-know-what. It's easy to not care.
Yeah.
It's harder.
To care.
That's right.
Yeah. You bet.
Lisa, you are such a strong role model for what it means to live with power and resilience. Thank you so much for your time being on Lifestyle.
Thank you for having me.
We loved having you here on the show. We've got to take a break, but when we come back, I've got some powerful words to make your life even better. Don't go away. Let's get real for a moment. Struggling with mental health isn't a weakness. It's part of being human. Just like we talk about a sprained ankle or high blood pressure, we need to talk about stress, anxiety, and depression with the same openness. Here's why it matters. Research from the National Institute of Mental Health shows that people who talk openly about their struggles are significantly less likely to engage in self-harm or violence towards others. In fact, regular mental health check-ins and conversations can reduce suicide risk by up to 40%. Talking is not complaining, it's releasing pressure from the emotional steam valve before it explodes. It's wiring our brains for healing instead of hiding. So let's ditch the stigma and start the conversation. You never know. Your honesty could be someone else's lifeline. Speak up, reach out, and remember, vulnerability isn't a crack in your armor. It's the doorway to your best life. Lisa, amazing. Don't forget that you can find exclusive content on all of our guests. Check us out on social media using the handle Lifestyle with Roy.